So I recently was away, did a road trip to Chicago with my wife. She was running the Chicago Marathon. She's a runner. As you can tell, I am not a runner. I cannot run, but she runs, and she's really passionate about it. We went to the Chicago Marathon, and I learned some things along the way. She talks, she shares all the time, and I listen, I pay attention. So even though this is not my thing, I kind of like understand, like, I know what her training protocol is and why she does the things that she does. And I understand like the joy, the stress, the toil, and the tearing of her body that happens. But yeah, so I'm there, and we actually ended up at the hotel that it's the official hotel of the marathon. So all the elite athletes were at the hotel, and she didn't realize this. And then she started running into them. She started running into all the people, her favorites, the people that she like watches and she knows by name. She knows their times and she idolizes, like, oh, in the elevator. She won't take a picture with them because they're racing. She doesn't want to bother them. She's kind of courteous that way. But like she ended up in some of the social influencers like YouTubes, and she's like, oh, this is so great. You know, she met some of these people that she watches all the time, and she was really excited about that. I mean, this marathon was incredible. In fact, the world record for the women's marathon race was set this past week at Chicago. 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 57 seconds. That's under 2 hours and 10 seconds. I can't run a mile in 2 hours, it feels like, right? How did she run 26? And in fact, this was it beat the old record by 2 minutes. If you have any idea how astounding this is, if she actually, this time would have placed her at number 10 amongst elite men in the world. If you have any idea how crazy that is. She didn't get to see her, obviously, but she did get to see a bunch of people. Because on the day, especially in the morning, I actually went down and I saw all of these athletes in there. And even beforehand, people were coming in and out of the hotel, and they had all this security that you couldn't go to the elevators until you could demonstrate who you are. You had to have your IDs. And my wife said she was down at the security waiting, and there's a guy in a wheelchair that came up, and he's trying to get in, and he didn't have his proper ID. And the security guard's giving him, like, no, you cannot get in here until you have the proper ID. And she's trying to tell the security guard, this guy's famous. This guy is like, he's like the best Paralympic, guy, who actually, does the marathons as well as others. He's got 16 medals in the Paralympics. 16. That's like a Michael Phelps, if you think about it. Yeah, right. He's won multiple world championships. He's actually, he was the reigning champion 2 years in. And in fact, this is Marcel Hugh. He won it again. So this guy, unrecognized, being told by some security guard, you're nobody, stay out, right? He actually is called a silver bullet, okay, because he wears this silver thing. He's amazing. And yet, he was dishonored. He was disregarded. And it happens a lot. Even when you are the top of your field, when everybody should recognize you, a social influencer where millions of people will say, I know that guy, a top athlete. Yeah, some people will not recognize. Yeah. So I'm sure if Taylor Swift showed up, the guy was like, I know who you are. And it was, of course. Or if Oprah Winfrey showed up, I don't know, but maybe even Mother Teresa, right? People who are worthy of honor. Sometimes we have different expressions of that. Sometimes because we know we're interested in certain things. Those people who play video games, you'd be like interested in a video game player that I would have no idea who it is, but like, oh, that guy's amazing, or that girl's amazing, but we would not know. We have this ability on the one hand to recognize and to express onto those who we think are really valuable, important. But oftentimes, we're in a culture that does not know how to honor people. Especially somebody who doesn't have 1 million followers, somebody who doesn't have 16 gold medals or 16 Olympic medals. We don't know how to honor people. In fact, our culture is not really a culture of honor. But when we look at the New Testament, when we look at the people of God, guess what? Honor is huge. It's not just a Mediterranean culture. It is a kingdom, biblical aspect of what does it mean to have right relationship. What is the principle, the paradigm of relationships amongst the people of God, amongst us and God, and amongst us and each other? Interestingly enough, it might be honor. But this does not get talked about. This does not get preached. And sometimes we follow our own cultural expressions of honor and assume that's what the Bible is talking about. So we're going to spend a little time as we're looking at what does it mean to have a biblical community that's refreshing, different from the world because we have different values, because we have a different God, and we live it out differently. That in fact, if we have a culture of honor, people would feel it like that. It would be so tangible, palpable, that people would say, this community is different. They treat each other different. They treat me different. And it would actually point to the God who actually chooses to honor us, even though we don't deserve. We're looking at the book of Romans, and the book of Romans, actually, some people have gone through years, section by section preaching. I'm not going to go through that, but it's a heavy, significant book. Everybody kind of remembers that the first 11 chapters is Paul talking about who God is and what he's done. And then shifting in chapter 12, verse 1 to, because of all of this, therefore now this is how we are to live. Yeah, that's the context. The context is that the people of God need to remember that God actually brought this family together, Jew and Gentile, strong and weak, male and female, slave and free. He's brought this ragtag group of misfits together into one fresh family. And they need to learn the family way of treating each other, a new family of origin way. We talked about that last time I was here a couple of weeks ago. Because what does it look like? How do the family of God engage each other? What is the DNA of the family of God's relationship, practice? And it's summed up in a word: love. This is the hard part. In English, we only have one word for love, right? In other languages, like in Greek, there are 4 to 7 different expressions, different kinds of ways to describe what love is. Other cultures have more. Eskimos have many, many words for snow. We only have one. Asians have many, many words for rice. We only have one, right? It's kind of like that. So we don't know how to think about, love. You can insert your own, expression or thought of what love looks like. This is what love is because this is what I think it is, or this is what my culture says. But actually, he's going to spend time outlining 13 different commands that kind of help us to understand, what does love look like? How are we supposed to love? Okay? Love must be sincere, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. And this is the verse that we're going to focus in on today. Okay, there's 13 of them, but this is the one that we're going to really, kind of 2 of these are going to really emphasize. Be devoted to one another in love. Be devoted. Love is not a feeling that comes and goes. Love is one that actually is not like sure, I love this hamburger, right? It's actually an aspect of devotion, deep, covenant. I'm going to stick with you through thick and thin, like family, okay? And then he says honor, right? Well, interestingly enough, honor is an expression of what love is, right? I want you to tie these two. Honor, what is honor? Okay, we have to reflect on this. What is honor? Okay? The first thing we kind of say is, wait a minute. Honor is a way of making people know they are loved. It is the outward expression and the receipt of love. Okay? And it's a kind of love that I think we'd be surprised at. Love one another with brotherly affection. This is the ESV. Brotherly affection. What is brotherly affection? Anybody heard of the word Philadelphia? Right? Or Philly for short? It's the city of, right, because that word, brotherly love, is that's right in the original Greek, Philadelphia. Love one another with brotherly love. Wait a minute, that person's not my brother? That person's not my sister? Wait a minute, if you were there 2 weeks ago, yes, they are. Who is my brother? Who is my sister? Who is my mother? All of those who follow the commands of God, right? Right? That's actually saying that, yeah, love one another with this kind of deep family love. The word for devoted, philistorgoi, is actually the same. It is a word describing family love. Yeah. What does it mean to love? Love as if they're your family. Okay? So I'm just going through that verse, that first part of verse 10. And in what way do we get to do this in a way that's tangible, palpable, felt, experienced? It's through honor. Honor, what does that mean? You're telling this person, you're expressing this person that they have value. They are of high esteem. They have worth. You respect them. You are lifting them up, saying, You are somebody. You're great. Okay? There's a difference between glory and honor, and I like this distinction. Glory, even if nobody sees it, describes an intrinsic. No matter what, you are of worth. You're great. The word actually in the Old Testament is heavy. Okay? There's weight to you, gravitas, to who you are, right? You have glory. Honor is when you recognize, oh, glory, amazing, okay? Ruth Chepnevich, oh my gosh, 2 hours and 9 minutes, right? Oprah Winfrey, Taylor Swift, oh, right? You're saying, oh my gosh, how great, the weight of your worth, of your glory. That's what honor is. You have seen, you've recognized, and you're expressing it. You're letting them know, letting the world know. It's about discerning value and then attaching it, showing you are a person of value. Right? We do that in other ways, the Medal of Honor. Because the Army values sacrifice, values heroism for the sake of others, right? That's why we give them the Medal of Honor. You don't get a Medal of Honor for sitting there and watching TV. You get it for doing something out of the ordinary for the sake of other people, because that's what you value and you point to it. We put the red carpet for people of value, right? Oh, this person's valuable, right? And that's one way of our culture kind of acknowledges it. Unfortunately, it's a celebrity-driven kind of version. But I want you to realize this is what all cultures do significantly. I'm even going to do a little interesting part of that's what we're supposed to do in our marriages, okay? Because you make vows, like Nathan and Neil made vows, but in your marriage you make vow, I'm going to love and cherish you, right? I'm going to stay faithful through poverty and wealth, sickness and health, to the day I die. You're basically saying, I love you, and you're making these vows. And isn't it interesting that actually, if you look carefully at the old Presbyterian vows, okay, this is like old language. And I didn't understand this at first, and I thought it was very idolatrous, because they would actually say, will you, to the husband, worship your wife? And to the wife, will you worship your husband? I was like, no! That's idolatry! You can't do that! But the way that they use that word actually is saying, will you see and attach value to them and then treat them as such? Okay? Well, interesting enough, in this passage, in the Wycliffe version, a very old English version of the Bible translation, it says, loving together the charity of brotherhood, right? Each come before to worship the other. Wait a minute. Are we supposed to say, oh, I worship, we're not worthy, we're not worthy? No. This is a way of saying we are going to say, you are a person of value. And we see that. We want to tell you that. We want to express it. We want to show you that. If you haven't gotten a sense of this, the culture of the family of God is a culture of honor. I'm going to say it again. The culture of the family of God is a culture of honor. So much so that the ESV translates it this way. Outdo one another. Go out of your way. Like box somebody out in order to honor somebody. Isn't that interesting? It gives you an idea that this is so strong of a core value that you're willing to actually one-up the other in honoring the other. Okay? Genuinely. Yeah. Here's the issue. There are a lot of different conceptions of honor and shame. In America, honor is something that you feel self-worth, and shame is something you don't feel self-worth. In Asia, it's cultural, it's social. If people say, oh, this person's honorable, or if you have put your family's name to shame, it's more that way. In Islamic settings, it's actually, when you feel shame, you will do anything. You will do violence, honor killings, in order to reclaim your honor. Each of this is a little different, but 80% of the world, and they're not including the Western world, I think, 80% of the world actually has a concept of honor. I think in the Western world, we've moved away from that, a public honor, an honor in paying attention to each other. We've kind of, I think part of it is democracy and other kinds of things that we can actually say to our kings, our presidents, you loser. We can say to our bosses, no. We've kind of gone the opposite direction. And this one pastor, John Mark Comer, says, ours is not a culture of honor, it's a culture of sarcasm, irreverence, ungrateful entitlement, of othering. It's a culture of contempt. You're beneath me. You are not great. I don't have to treat you as somebody special. Who are you? Because I'm the one that's special. I think this might be seen in other kinds of settings. So I came from Seattle. I spent a long time in Seattle. In Seattle, the three companies that defined the customer service was Nordstrom, Starbucks, and Costco. Okay? Costco, you can have bought something 10 years ago and you return it and they'll give you money back. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Starbucks, they'll take any one of like 7 billion drink orders. Nordstrom was the most significant of this. You can go in and you be dressed like with torn t-shirt and flip-flops and they'll treat you like a VIP. How can I help you today? They'll spend time with you. They'll help you. Even if you don't buy anything, they don't care. Sometimes people are depressed, they would go to Nordstrom just to feel better about themselves, right? There was a bank, our credit union, and I don't know what they did with their customer service, but I hate calling banks. But this bank I would love to talk to because after talking with this person at the bank, anybody, always different people, but I would come away feeling, wow, they treated me like a real person, okay? That was Seattle. Then I came to New York. I came to buy a sandwich at a store, and I'm in line, I get up there, and the guy just he even look at me. What? Hurry up. I'm I'm waiting for him to make eye contact, right? To tell him what I was going to order. And it was actually like such a rude awakening, right? It's a little description, even in customer service, how sometimes we can feel the difference between honor being dishonored, being seen as somebody of worth, being seen as somebody worth contempt. I think one of the reasons why our culture is such a culture of contempt is because we're me-centered. It's about me. If you can make me feel better, if you can raise my profile, then you're somebody of worth. But actually, the culture of the kingdom of God is other-centered. It's about how do I look after your interests, not my own only. How do I build you up? How do I see how God sees you? And how do I invest in you? Because that's the culture of the Father, Son, and Spirit. They don't trip over each other to get on top of each other and to push each other down. They outdo themselves to build each other up, to honor each other. It's a culture of other-centeredness in the kingdom. It's a culture of grace. You might not deserve it. You might not even feel like you're a person of honor. Like, I'm just a housewife. I just raised 2 kids. But actually in the kingdom, you're a person of incredible honor. You don't just go to the CEOs who's got multi-billion dollars and say, oh, we're not worthy. No. In the kingdom, it's different. We treat people differently. The culture of honor does not work the way our culture works. So who are we supposed to honor? Okay? We know the what. It's about building others. It's about seeing worth and expressing it and genuinely, right? The who. Well, the first who is one another. Everybody here. So if you haven't heard, this is a command. Honor one another. Everybody here. Yes, honor your family members, brotherly love. Honor your family members in Christ, okay? But there's a lot of descriptions of honor, okay? In the Old Testament, it makes it into the 10 Commandments. Honor your father and mother. Ooh, what does that mean? Once again, that word in the Hebrew is kabod. It's the word of glory. It's the word of heaviness. Take their personhood heavy, as worthy. Don't just light, as disposable. Take their advice. Take their commands as heavy. Now, it changes as they get older and you become an adult, and then they are no longer just over you because you're now kind of an adult. Now it changes to take care of them. Take their livelihood, their welfare in a heavy form. That's what it means. That you are honoring who they are, where they are, both their needs and their value as a person. Honor your father and mother. This is actually a base description of saying, how do you honor your leaders? And so this is applied to your leaders at work, applied to your leaders at church, applied to our leaders in our government even. Okay? 1 Timothy 5:17. The elders who direct the affairs of the church well are worthy of double honor. The normal honor that you normally give, but also because they are working hard for you, preaching and teaching, right? It's about honor, right? Honor everyone. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the emperor. Why would you honor the emperor? The emperor at this time was Nero, who set fire to distract, what the people are unhappy about, and then he blamed the Christians. And there was a massive persecution on the Christians. Some people think Paul died because of Nero. But he's saying, honor that guy? Honor him? I think there's an interesting upside-downness about the way we are called to honor, who we're called to honor in the kingdom. It's not the way our culture revolves around, the rich, the beautiful, the celebrities. No. We're called to honor everyone. Yes, the emperor. Yes, the elders. Yes, our mother and father. Everyone. Not just those above us in our social standing. Everyone. Okay? And I think this is kind of interesting for us to pay attention to. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 23, when he's talking about the body of Christ, and he's saying, on those parts that in the body that we think less honorable, less valuable, we bestow greater honor. Okay? You don't just honor everyone, yes, everybody, one another, but especially the ones that you think that the world sees as trash, the world has rejected. Okay? Think about this. Who does Jesus choose as his disciples? The ruling party from the Sadducees, the righteous group from the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, the scribes, the ones who have memorized the Old Testament and quote it for you all day long. He chooses fishermen, a dishonorable tax collector, a zealot. Okay, somebody, we talked about this, somebody who actually was a terrorist, right? Or part of a terrorist group. He chooses the dishonorable. Who does he minister to, right? Who does he welcome? The dishonored, the prostitute, the tax collector, the leper, the most cursed of humanity. What does he do? He touches them, he heals them, he embraces them. He says, God honors you, God sees you, God loves you. He changes our paradigm. He upturns it. Yeah. And it's not as if he does something different, as if, oh, he's a different God and the Old Testament God is different. No. Look at Proverbs 14:31. Whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker. That means if you oppress the poor, you're saying, God, I spit on you. You're nothing. You're beneath me. But whoever is kind to the needy honors God. This is God's heart. When he sees somebody who the world dishonors and says, you're nobody, guess what? He cares for. He's the one that's lifting them up and honoring them. And how you treat them actually, in many ways, reverberates back to you. You show contempt on a dishonorable, and God says, you're showing contempt to me. You honor even the needy, the poor, and you are honoring God. Yeah? So why? We talked about what is honoring, who should we honor? Everyone, especially those who are even lesser worth in the eyes of the world, less honorable. Why should we honor? Number one, because as we honor God, he honors us. There's this flow of honor. To those who honor me, I will honor. Those who despise me should be lightly esteemed. We take God's words as heavy. We take his worth, and that's what worship is, by the way, ascribing worth. God, you are beautiful, you're wonderful, you're powerful, you're so full of mercy. I am not worthy, but you are. Guess what? As you come and as you worship, as you honor him, something shifts in your own heart and in your own life. Okay? Why should we honor our father and mother? It's the first commandment that comes with a promise. Honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land. There's a sustainability. There's a blessing, a providence, a protection, a wellness that comes when you actually stay in a culture of honor. There's also dangers when you dishonor and that we don't pay attention to. We don't realize, but actually it happens. I'm talking about husbands and wives. Husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor. When was the last time husbands were told, that's your job? Have you honored your wife? Okay, you know how would you know? Ask your wife, do you feel honored? That's the test. Yeah. Showing honor to the woman as a weaker vessel. It's not saying they're weaker in will or weaker in value. They're saying weaker in physical strength. And because of that, you should honor them more. Consider their needs. Consider where they are. Build them up even more. Since they are heirs with you in the grace of life, and this is the why. Why should you honor your wife? Yeah? Some people say, happy wife, happy life. That's the reason? No. You should honor your wife so that what? Your prayers will not be hindered. What does that mean? If you dishonor your wife, it's like saying you've clogged up your relationship with God. You can't draw from God what He wants to give you. You can't enter into this free-flowing culture of honor because you've dishonored the person that's closest to you. And you set a culture of dishonor that is in contradistinction, smack in the face of God, and you're showing God contempt. Have you thought of that? Yeah. Wives, you should honor your husbands too. It's not just one way around, right? What starts off as, will you vow to worship, see the value in this person and express it, it devolves to contempt. Happens all the time. I was a young pastor and I went to a new environment, and a lot of the couples were older than me. They're about 7 years married, and heard the 7-year itch. And we were newlyweds, and they're so happy. And the 7-year married couples were sitting down in the group, and they're all saying, I can't even stand to look at this guy. He cuts his toenails and leaves it on the floor, right? He didn't give me a Pepsi when I was pregnant. I'm hearing all these stories, all the rage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this what we're going to look forward to? My wife and I looking at each other like, this is scary, right? And just the contempt, right? Or the rolling of the eyes. Yeah. And people say that's normal, right? That's normal. Well, actually, it has effects. Contempt has effects in your marriage. There's this group called the Gottman Group out in the University of Washington. They study marriages. They're kind of like a think tank. And they say, give us 5 to 10 minutes and responding to some questions, and we can tell you with 90% accuracy whether you will have a healthy, sustained, durable marriage or not. What do they test? What's the secret sauce of figuring out with 90% accuracy you're going to be staying married or you're going to get divorced? Okay? Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? It's the ratio of positive versus negative communication. If the ratio is 5 to 1, even through gestures, you can make fun of each other, but then you say, I'm just kidding, right? And they know it. If it's 5 to 1, you've got a good chance. If it's 8 to 1 negative, you're in big trouble. It's the looks you give. It's the words you use. It's the tone of voice you use. They call it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. That in fact, they'll say, if you see these 5.6 years after the wedding, you're going to see something huge happen. That's what we saw. 7 years in, we're like, oh, we're seeing the apocalyptic, of marriages. It's basically, you can move down to this. If you honor your wife, you honor your husband, you're going to have a good marriage. If you dishonor them, it's going to be really hard. And there's grace, but you can't not repent of dishonor and expect to have a good marriage. Yeah, you'll be tortured, because you can't trust somebody who's constantly cutting you down. You can't build a healthy relationship with somebody who won't see your value, but only point out your places where you're at fault, the small things, and tag you to that as saying, you are this. You are the guy who leaves the sock on the floor, okay? That doesn't build trust. I think a culture of honor is beautiful because this is the quote. Culture of honor is celebrating who a person is without stumbling over who they're not. I'm going to repeat that. A culture of honor is celebrating who a person is, who God has made them to be, where they are in their process of becoming like Christ even. Their value just given by God, not just their abilities, but who they are, without stumbling over who they're not. Doesn't mean that you are somehow in denial. Oh, this my spouse is perfect. It's actually saying, I am aware of those things, but I'm going to treat them with honor because God treats them with honor and for who they are. If we had a culture like this, the world would come in and they would say, how refreshing! Oh my gosh, this is different. It's not fake, it's real. Yeah? If somebody saw a marriage where the two are just absolutely honoring each other, you know what they would say? They're in love. Here's another why. When we honor people, we get access to whatever the people carry. Honor opens the door, okay, for all of that grace to come to us. If it's friendship, relationship, conversation, wisdom, prophetic ability, healing, discernment, wealth, resources, opportunity, whatever it is. When we dishonor people, we cut ourselves off from whatever it is they have to offer. Okay? If a genius came into your room, into your family and sitting down, and they knew exactly what marriage was about, and you sit there and say, whatever. Okay? But this is John Gottman. He can predict 90%, whatever. Anything that might help your marriage has been cut off. You honor them, you listen to them. Really? Oh, okay, I want to take the test. Help me have a better marriage. All of that resources come to you. It works with Jesus too, doesn't it? Here comes Jesus to his hometown where he was just blasted. He was seen as a nobody. Nobody thought Jesus was anything. He comes and he's teaching, he's preaching, he's doing incredible things. People are hearing, that's the Jesus? That's Mary's son. We don't even know whose father he is. That's the one that I beat up because he was a dork. That Jesus? Wait a minute. And they got offended, okay? And they did not honor him. They did not receive what he wanted to bring as the agent of God, as God in flesh. So what does Jesus say? A prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown and his own household. We saw that. His parents thought, his mother and his brothers thought he was, woohoo, right? Isn't that interesting? And so the next line, you guys know what the next line is in the book of Matthew? He couldn't do many miracles. All of that love of God, that power of God could not move because there was dishonor. That's why. It's powerful. It builds. I have more, by the way, but I'm going to hold off. But we're going to talk a little about the how before we finish. How? How do we build this and grow in this culture of honor? Love that is tangible, felt. Remember, it's not enough for you to realize that person is great and worthy because God says so as well. We have to express it. We have to show it. It has to be felt and received. Okay? A culture of honor. Culture of honor means you've done it so much, it's like in your muscle memory. Okay? You see a different culture and they do certain things, like kind of like you go to my house and actually you take off your shoes. Everybody's taking off your shoes and you go, okay. When in Rome, I took my shoes off, right? Otherwise you walk in and everybody's like, oh, dude, your shoes, right? Right? Or maybe, yeah, this is an Asian house, so you should take your shoes off, right? A culture has this kind of like the social structures of encouragement around it, right? So if somebody is using dishonoring speech, guess what? The culture says, no, that's not the way that we treat people here, right? If somebody comes and you just totally diss them, you don't even look at them. No. Go say hi. My mom, she taught me this because it's an Asian culture. I would go to church, I can't even speak Korean, but she would actually say, did you bow to everybody? Okay? I know this is kind of weird, but that's what we do in our culture. Okay? To greet, we bow, right? And you have to bow like, the more value they are, the lower you bow, right? So I would be like, anybody I see, I would be like, you know why? Because my mom would say, did you bow? And then her hand would be ready to slap the side of my head. Right? It's like, I did. I visited them. My mom's almost 80 degrees, and she had her hand out ready to. I'm like, I did. Because that's the culture. Now, that's kind of bad. That's a little too much, right? But we have, in our culture, different ways of speaking, honorific. There's one level of honorific. Then there's another level. There's actually even higher levels that nobody uses to actually say, you're a person of worth. Well, I think that's one of the ways that we should. Maybe this is not in your family of origin, but this is in the family origin of God. Not titles, not just the important people, but for everyone, right? I love that language of culture because it says that if we build a culture, the culture sustains. And the culture is what everybody is grown into. Not just we have to tell everybody or slap somebody when they don't do it. The culture actually grows people in this. But in order to have that culture, you have to invest in it. You might not see it right away. You might honor somebody and they don't honor you back. And you'll be like, whatever. But if you build a culture, guess what? It's an ever-increasing sense of this is what it looks like to be God's people. People will walk in and they will like, I am so valued. I don't even know why. People really want to know my story. They want to hear who God is in my life. They want to celebrate me, and I have such belonging and worth here, right? They don't look at all the stuff that I did or was. They see me through the lens of Christ. The way they talk to me, I think words are powerful, encouraging, words that speak truthfully to who a person is, not stumbling over who they're not. Things of value. You ascribe value by the things that's valuable to you. Your time, your attention, your energy. Yes, your funds. Yes, gifts, right? I think that's a beautiful way. Something as simple as a greeting. In this culture, it's a bow. In European cultures, it's a various number of kisses. In one culture, it's 2, it's number 3. In the Mediterranean, some cultures, it's 5, some is 7. Okay? You say hi, you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Right? Well, did you know that's biblical? Several times, 3 times, I'm just choosing one of them in 1 Corinthians. Greet one another with a holy kiss. Did you do that today? What is that saying? You come in and you actually warmly, like a celebrity, like somebody of value, somebody coming over to your home, and you're wanting to make them feel so like a VIP. Hello. You rise up, right, in their presence. You give them eye contact, right? You pay attention to them. You give them the time, energy, and that's an expression of love and honor. If you don't do that, and you just kind of like, yeah, oh, you're home. Okay, did you bring me anything? Right? That's not a loving home. That's not a loving setting. We get to be other-centered. We get to think about how they might want to be honored. Okay? Not, well, I feel honored when somebody bows this deep, which I don't, right? Right? I feel old when someone does that, right? No. Using the love languages, right? Of words, of gifts, of time spent together, of acts of service, of, appropriate touch. Yeah. Something that is palpable, experiential, described, not just in words, but felt. You have value. Do you realize the person next to you, in front of you, behind you, the King of all kings, the creator of the universe, shed his blood for, gave his body for? The person with the greatest worth gave up that worth for that person and for you. We have value intrinsically because of him. And we are learning how to express that in a culture of honor. We are family. And our family of origin sometimes is not great. But we can learn this because this is God's family. We can invest, even if it doesn't happen right away, into a culture of honor. So would you pray with me?